Welcome to another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast. We have very special guests with us today. We have Oak Theory, co-founders behind a design studio specializing in UX, UI, web, and application design. They are actually clients of mine and friends. Hannah and Veronica, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy
Nice
to
to
be
be
here.
here.
Thank you guys so much. I'm just so excited because not only are they fantastic clients of mine, but we got to meet up in Miami when they were down for a conference. And I just really got to know them. And I'm so inspired by their story. They are women that are just kicking ass and taking names, to say it lightly. So, can you guys just start out by telling us, like, the whole backstory? Like, it's very juicy, and I'd love to hear just really winding back to the beginning of your careers and how you guys met and started Oak Theory.
Okay, so just to jump to the beginning, I'm Veronica. I have COVID right now, making it clear for context. I'm Veronica. My background is in creative direction and development, front end. I worked for a ton of cool companies in the past, and one of the coolest was the one that I met Hannah at because of what it led to. Together, we built Oak Theory. Oak Theory, we like to say that we are visual storytellers, but also we're mainly a product design and development studio. And we focus on helping brands from building out their strategy to figuring out what they want to do, how they want to tell their stories, to helping them build it. And we work with a lot of web design projects, software, SaaS applications from beginning to end. So very exciting journey. Okay, how do we get started? Hannah, should I jump into that or do you want to?
Go ahead.
So, okay, me and Hannah worked together at a company. Oh my God, I'm forgetting the name. It was a marketing company, right?
Yeah, ad tech company.
Ad tech company. Very smart products that we were working on. And I remember when we first met, Hannah was hiring and she hired me to come in to a project that she was working on. So she was a product manager and I came in as a creative lead, so to speak, and kind of going over strategy together too, which was cool. Um, when we met, I remember just having that feeling because we were like the only girls in this room of like nothing but men, and then we were women of color at that, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, hi, like we're here. I've never, we're not used to that, and we bonded really well after that. But then yeah, so fast forward, uh, Hannah's in New York. I'm in California when she hires me. I decide I'm going to move for personal reasons to New York. Hannah decides she's going to move to California. So that's what happens after. Like, it's just like we're just missing each other. I have a friend who needs me to house sit in California. I go to California to house it and I say, Hannah, let's hang out, right? We weren't working together anymore. I probably skipped a lot because Hannah thinks I'm great at telling the story, but I'm only good at telling the end. Um, we were no longer working together. We finished the project off, and now I went over to see her. God, I'm butchering this. I went over to see her, and I'm butchering this. Hannah, you have
You're
to
I
tell
doing
can
the
jump
great.
in.
story.
This is
I
fun.
ruined the whole beginning. Just tell the
No,
beginning.
listen. No, that's good. It's feels like it's a while ago, but yeah, I was in Oakland, and then you're visiting Oakland to dog sit and house
Yes.
sit a friend's house, and we met up just to hang out, and we got in her friend's Jeep and we drove down one of those California highways, and we were just talking about life and what we want to pursue. I was looking to, like, I was interviewing at the time, figuring out what I wanted to do, kind of at the cusp of you've done your trade for a little bit. And as I interviewed at more places, I felt like, oh man, it's just like the same thing and different, with different swag and different like lunches at different startups. And I just felt a little bit stuck. And when V and I met up, I felt that energy again. We're like, dang, we just like, there's some magic between us, and there's like a chemistry that I just felt like was palpable and that it could create some magic. And so yeah, we were on the highway and I looked over at her and I was like, do you want to start something together? Like, just start a company together? And she was like, because V's a Sagittarius, and so she'll be very like, yeah, sure. And yeah, and that was the beginning of everything. And we went to Chick-fil-A and sat down and just it was like a movie scene because it was like
Mhm.
crowds of people, and I just remember everything felt blurry and like my ears were blocked out and all I could see is like her, and like everything else was like my background was like a blur vision. And we just got down to business and talking about it was a lot of like, I'm really serious. Are you serious? Like I'm
Yeah.
100%. Are you 100%?
Over a
Like,
Chick-fil-A sandwich, like, people
yeah,
hunched over in line next to us,
yeah,
and I'm like, "No, I'm dead ass."
yeah. And I was like, no, I'm like 100%. I'm not gonna be like pursuing something else. And I was interviewing at Google at the time, and I was like that could be a big opportunity, but I was like, no, but this is the
This is
opportunity.
it.
And so, yeah, that's how we got started, and we signed like our
Little
make
napkin
believe
paper.
papers, yeah, and that was how we started in
Yeah.
Oakland. And part of why
Literally
our name is
next
called
day.
yeah, and part of why our name is called Oak Theory.
Yeah.
That was one of my questions. This literally sounds like a movie. What's that California song? It's like, we've been on the run, driving in the sun.
Uh-huh.
I can just imagine that playing behind you guys down this California highway.
California.
Yeah.
It really was, and I was going crazy. Those wheels are huge on that Jeep. I was like, "Oh my god." Yeah.
And
Was
the
this a Jeep with like
crazy
no doors?
No, the windows were down. It was
Okay.
literally the most beautiful day. We were coming from Walnut Creek. I
Mhm.
remember going back into the bay and like it was very movie-esque the way she looked over at me and asked me when we're like blasting. I don't even know what music we were playing, but we were like, she's like, "You want to start business together?"
And it was a Jeep Wrangler. And
Yeah.
the cool thing is the friend whose car we were riding, she's one of our main people
Account manager.
on our team. And she's been with us for the past almost 3 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kismet. There's like a lot of synchronicity to your story, especially
Mhm.
with the like bi-coastal, one of you in New York, one of you in California, one of you
Mhm.
goes back. I love that. I'm very curious, like when you guys started this partnership, did you guys have similar roles or did you guys know right away, like, okay, I'm gonna do this, you're gonna do that, we're gonna divide and conquer? What did it look like for you guys?
I think like we knew me and Hannah, we like to call ourselves yin and yang because our brains, we use two different sides. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths to
Mhm.
why we work. And so right on the off the bat, it wasn't even a you do this, you do this. Like, I can't do that, girl. You have to do that. And it was like, I can't do that shit. You do that. So it was very easy for us to kind of right from the initial, like the jump, be like, this is what we're going to handle. And this is what we're going to hold our responsibility and accountability for. And that's how it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's one of our biggest blessings in our partnership. There's
Mhm.
never a territory crossover because typically what I like to do, V doesn't want to do what she's great at. I don't have tolerance for it. And so it's just kind of like, nope, you handle that, I handle this. And I think that's the biggest part of our partnership is like total trust and like
Mhm.
respect for you being able to handle that. And I mean, of course, we'll jump in and give our 2 cents and we'll like be like, can you go away so let me finish what I'm doing? But for the most part, we're just we're so opposites in a lot of ways and similar, but it's really worked out well for our company.
Yeah.
I feel like that is the exact way that a partnership should work, especially in business. I've heard a lot of people with a lot of mixed reviews. I've heard ones that they try to do everything, it doesn't work out. I've heard other ones that kind of went in it for, maybe monetary reasons or whatever it may be, and then realizing that they actually just don't have any synergy when it comes to partnership. So,
Mhm.
this is super, super inspiring for Bridget and I, and for all of our listeners. Can you tell us what it kind of looked like at the very beginning of Oak Theory? Like when you guys were like, okay, we need to sit down and actually create this. What were just like the beginning stages? Was it messy? Was it feeling really structured right away?
It was very collaborative
Mm.
and very much like, even though we were separated, like the first day when we started, we didn't just start it and then we separated. We had a day, remember, at the house where we sat and we like really dug into what we were trying to build. What was our reason? Why? What did we want out of it? Right. And even having the hard conversations of what's our hard nose? Like, who do you have any limits on who we would work with and who we wouldn't? Right. And so we had those really tough conversations right from the jump. And then it was always a conversation of us going in equally. That was another big one. It was like, we're going in equally. I think a lot of partnerships, there's always this conversation of, well, what are you going to do versus what I'm going to do? And what's the value exchange there with the balance of the business? And I think by going in equally allowed us to, it just created this really easy process and flow. And Hannah, you can come in and correct me, but like it just made things where it's like, no, we're in this together. Like we have a bigger purpose. We both align on that. We know who our hard no's are, who we don't want to work with. We know the team that we want to build, and we know the style in which we want to build it. And we trust each other enough to know, I know you're a badass. You're brilliant, right? That was me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm honored to work with you. And I felt like I had the same respect. And from that, it's like there's always been that trust there that allowed us to just again, feel blessed that we just really work well together. Like, that's my work wife for life. You know, I don't want to start any other business
100%.
without her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
inspiring. I love that trust is at the forefront of everything. Bridget and I have this conversation all the time, like about trust. I don't trust anybody else with anything. I am a control freak, which is kind of bad. So, it's a learning, but I think it's what makes me really good at what I do sometimes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
So
right, what's your sign?
me, I'm a Gemini,
Oh, shoot.
but
I work
yeah,
really well with Geminis. I'm in a lot of, all my exes are Geminis. We talk about this. And the person I'm with dating now is a Gemini. So it's like good personalities.
thanks.
Interesting.
We have a lot. That's what they say. So me
Yeah.
and my boyfriend are both Geminis, and we're like, yeah, there's 4 of us. So we have a lot to work with.
I didn't realize
So
he was
accurate.
too.
Oh yeah, Spencer's a Gemini.
Well,
So
I was going to
funny.
ask you, Hannah, because you said that V is Sagittarius. So now we need to know what you are too.
I'm a Capricorn, so
Okay.
I'm very
Perfect.
like work, like structured. Yeah. What about you?
I'm a Leo sun, but I'm a Capricorn rising. So most people
Mm.
see like I love working. Like give me something to dig my teeth into and we will build something fun and
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're like an astrology nerd, I have so many planets in Capricorn, and that's my north node. So I'm supposed to be
Interesting.
going towards Capricorn.
Come on
I
over,
can see
baby.
it.
Welcome. Come
I'm
in.
like, Capricorn, let's go.
Yeah.
So this show is Visibility Era, and what I find so inspiring about Oak Theory, I mean, there's a million things I find inspiring about you guys, but what I find so inspiring is you realized that people, women particularly, and minorities were not really seen as the top in these top positions. And so what was that transition like for you to start something new and be like, okay, we're actually going to opt out of that and be seen? And what was like the, I guess, journey to kind of allowing yourselves to be seen and be like, spotlight is on you? Like, what did that look like?
I would say we're still working on it, and like even working with you, Lydia, I think that was like a big kind of like intentional thing on our end of like, let's not just be in the background, but be in the forefront and be visible. And I love that word, visibility, because it matters. Because if you don't see it, like no matter what great work you're doing, people like other, women and women of color who might be coming up might not like know that you exist, or it just, it's good to see examples, but it's taken a while because it's not, I like our journey. I remember we first got our Yeti mics in 2020 when we started our company because we had the intention of wanting to be more visible. And we're like, let's put the intention, and we purchased them and they collected dust for the past 3 years. And we're finally using it in 2024. And so I think there's the want and the desire to, and the aspiration to, versus when we're ready to. And the 4 years of building our business, I think we've also personally grown so much in the 4 years that allowed us to like step into who we are. And we always try to really celebrate like our own growth and not rush it. It's like, like, oh yeah, 4 years ago we were like this, or we felt confident with this, but that's just not it's just not realistic. And so we always try to tell each other like how proud we are of each other's growth, and acknowledge it, and just kind of see like, wow, like what felt so daunting now, like being on podcasts or being visible, like now feels like second nature. And so that's cool to see that growth, but it's definitely taken time. and effort. And I think building our business and seeing success and going through a lot of failures, I think that helped me at least to build a confidence to be able to show up authentically without feeling like I have to be someone to be able to speak. So for me, it's just kind of like going through the journey itself is the badge of honor for me to give myself permission to be visible.
I love that. I would love for you guys to tell us the quick and dirty of UX, UI, because I think that a lot of people are going to see those words and be like, cross-eyed? What does that mean? How does that impact us? How does that impact a customer experience for even our listeners? Like, what should they be thinking about when it comes to UX, UI?
So UX, UI are two different things. UX is user experience, while UI is user interface. And with UX, when we're talking about experience, I always like to use examples. For this one, I guess I'll use a camera, right? And so if we have a digital camera in your hand, the UX side of it would be, let's think about the screen that you're seeing, where you're seeing it, where it's placed, where the buttons are placed, and how easy it is for your thumbs to reach them, right? Maybe the way you're holding it, how easy it is. Even that is considered a UX experience, because it's like, how easy is that to hold in your hand? Those kind of things are what you would look at for the UX side of things in life. The UI side would be the visuals. So when we're looking at the camera and we look inside, and you could see where the placement is of the grid that locks you to the center, when you're able to press the buttons on the back of it, like what that feels like, how big those buttons are, what color they are. All of those things would be considered the user interface. That's what you're interacting with. That's what you're using. So that would probably be a good example. Should I use another one?
I have one.
What?
I went to IKEA recently to like keep my toddler busy, and I was like, this is great
Oh.
user experience, because they like, when you go to an IKEA, you could go to an IKEA anywhere in the States, and it's just the same route, and you somehow end up like you don't even have to think about where you're walking to. So I would
Yes.
say that's like good user experience and interface of like kind of like the experiences you get. Like DMV, I always think of as a bad user experience, user interface.
I wonder if on purpose.
Maybe because they don't have any competition. And
Yeah.
so like it's just like I always say, like, if you have to think too hard about your experience, whether it be an application or an in-person, it's probably bad user interface and user experience.
No,
But
IKEA is great,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
even when you look at the map, and then the UI side of that would be the stickers that they put on the floor that let you know what direction you're going in, and the
Yeah.
signs that keep you. So yeah, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
love
they
these
always lead you to that
examples.
doggone kitchen. Like somehow.
It's all about the meatballs.
It's all about the Swedish meatballs. Yes.
It's all about the Swedish meatballs. I remember me and my friends went there one day in college to like get a lamp or something. And we were like, guys, like it was a journey. We were like, we're going to get through this in under an hour today. We're not going to stay here for 4 hours, and we're not going to do this.
Impossible.
We tried our hardest, and it was more like 2 hours, which I thought was pretty impressive, but I feel like they make it so it's a 4-hour journey.
They do. They do. Yeah. And you know what? Another side of UX to that is, how we love the Swedish meatballs, right? Probably like 2 or 3 times in your journey, you'll see them. And that's UX. That's called, what is it called? Like you go back and you test things and you see how things are working. And so I'm sick, so my brain's not working as well, but it's iterations over time where you're like, okay, we're seeing that Swedish meatballs are doing really well. Let's place an ad for them as soon as they walk in, so they're thinking about it. And then let's put them in the freezers next to the register so that they'll buy them on their way out. And that is a perfect example of how it works and why it works, because they're probably selling Swedish meatballs off the charts, Yeah.
This is so interesting. Bridget and I are such nerds. We love this shit. Also, I think you guys said you love My First Million. Bridget's obsessed with that show. She brings it up regularly.
I don't know, Hannah probably.
No, I don't know if it was us.
It's
Maybe it
really
wasn't
good. You guys should get on that show. It is like, I don't know.
Tried.
It's just,
we're going to get them on it.
You
It's
guys
like
need
it
to
makes
do that
sense.
Oh, I think that's the one that my husband Amos, he always sends. Is it a podcast?
It's a podcast with
Yes.
Sam Parr, who sold The Hustle, and then Sean Curry or something, who sold the Milk Road to like Twitch. So yeah, and they
There's
just
a
like,
guy, I think there's a guy who goes on there a lot who owns the company, the agency that turned into a VC agency, Tiny.
Oh,
I
yes.
think he gets
Okay.
up. Yeah, that's why I'm familiar with it.
I gotta
Yeah.
check it out.
Yeah.
it's a good one. They don't have that
Okay.
many women either. Like it's definitely a bro-y show, but that's
Yeah.
why like you guys need to be on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's
Do
get on it.
That's exactly why. I mean, there's many reasons, but that's exactly why they need to bring you guys on. So if you're listening, I've pitched you. We'll talk. So we know what UX UI is. Why do people come to you? I mean, we've explained it, but like, is there specific products or like when do you typically see businesses come to you where they're like, oh, okay, we actually really need a specialist for this, not just somebody that's going to do, you know, pretty visuals or not somebody that's just going to do the back end. What do those projects look like?
They vary. So we work with a lot of, let's say, startup companies. So let's say they just got funding, they have a basic product or website out in the market, but they're ready to go out strong. And so they'll work with us. We'll partner with them to be the UX UI and design expert and team for them. So working on whether it be a software interface design or a web design, just working to make sure that, you know, we're doing user research, that we're designing for their main target audience. So startups is common. And then also any big company, I think every company we go through evolution and iteration. So even us, like every year we're making tweaks on our website or even our messaging. There's always something that you're learning and you want to evolve into, and you learn more about your target audience. And so you want to speak better to them, or there's new trends in the market to make it more mobile friendly. And so there's always evolution. And we always tell our clients, like, you don't have to get it perfect, just make the next iteration for what you're needing. And so we'll also work with big clients who have multiple departments, for example. And so what happens is there's a lot of miscommunications or the design system gets scattered. And so we're helping them consolidate and make it more consistent. So different scenarios, but there's always a need for I feel like just being an outsider to companies, it helps because we get to see it from a different perspective. And also, you know, we talk about us being a very small percentage of agencies that are women of color led and owned. And the reason that's important to call out is because when we work on any project, we're also thinking of different perspectives that
Exactly.
anyone else might not be thinking about. And so all of that combined, yeah, we work with a lot of different stage clients and brands.
And I think that's our strength, right? Like, of course, we always say this, we're like, there's tons of other studios who are doing great work too, and who can build out products. But the things that probably make us stand out is one, how we exist in this industry. And Hannah, you say this all the time, we're 0.1% of businesses like ours. And so we bring in a very new approach and look to every project that we work on because we have the perspective that they can't buy, you know? And I think because of that, we hire with that in mind too. Like the people on our team, we have a very diverse team. We're not like, while we are a woman-owned studio, because I think of who we are, we understand how important it is to have every perspective from different ages, different sexes, sexualities, ethnicities, whatever on the board. We like to make sure our team is diverse and they come from diverse backgrounds. And we bring that into projects. And so that's, I think, a really big plus with everyone we work with. And our network, we even reach out there because we highlight that. Second is, I think, our background. While we are a design studio, we are a development studio, we're very, I don't want to say meticulous, but we like to think in a really, I think our team, as we're growing, I'm seeing that all of us have it. We like to think things through very, I don't want to say uniquely, but just the way that we build out our products isn't just, it's never linear. We're always trying to figure out, we always think about the future when we're building. We're always thinking about scale. And I love that that's how we approach projects, because it's always thinking about our clients, like where they could be, and doing it in a way where it's like, well, this is where we're going to start you. This is your MVP, right? Like this is your MVP, but this is where you're going to go. Most clients come in and they have an idea and they think they know exactly what they want. And we like to kind of break it down and like be like, okay, let's actually get a really good understanding of your project and make sure we're building it out with what you need first to launch so that we can scale you to what you want in a way that's healthy. And so it's just a way that we approach projects that I think is really special. And yeah.
So cool. I absolutely agree with having different perspectives. Lydia and I talk about this a lot. When you're in your like little silo of like your own business, it's very hard to see what you can't see because you're just in it. So I appreciate that perspective too. And there's one thing that as you guys started talking there, I'm thinking, okay, they started this 4 years ago. They came from more of a corporate startup background. How did you get your first client or your first couple of clients? Did you do direct outreach? Were they, companies that you already had connections with? What did that look like?
Yeah, our first client, I remember where I was in California when we
Mhm.
signed. I remember I was like, oh my God, it's happening. It was through my previous company, and they had heard that he knew that I was starting our own company, and so he recommended us to someone who was starting up their own company to help start their brand. And so that was one. It was a lot of cold outreaches, reaching out, just like typical like hustle. But yeah, a couple of referrals and then just publicizing ourselves on LinkedIn and just slowly building over time.
Were you guys putting out a lot of content to begin, or was it more you just had the connection, so you were doing direct outreach and you knew the value proposition?
Yeah, no, not a lot of content. We're still trying to work on that, but direct outreaches and a lot of our projects they take months to complete. And so it was hard in the beginning of juggling like doing the work because it was Veronica and I just doing all the work, like everything, right? Sales to pitching, putting proposals together to executing strategy, everything. We were doing everything, and then we should be doing business development, but when do you have time for that? And so it was we built it as much as we can, and then we started to hire as soon as we could invest back to the company, and we always invested back to the company first. And so we didn't take a pay for a long time so that we could always build out a team that could start to handle different parts and components of our business so that we can grow and we could scale. And we knew that that was the investment and the kind of like the sacrifice in the moment that we wanted to do for scalability.
Yeah. And I would say in the beginning, like it was definitely reputation. I feel like with the people that worked with us, even with our first client, like he knew what the experience was like working with us. Like he didn't just come in like, oh yeah, you guys are starting a company. It's like, no, there was respect there of being like, oh, you two, like, I know what I'm gonna get. And I think that's what continued like with people when we would share things and people would recommend us to other people, is because they knew like what we were doing. Because again, we were the only few. There's women in our field. We exist, right? But I think with both of us, we're kind of like out there in trying to kind of fight it a little bit. Like, no, we're out here. Like, and it's seen and it was heard a little louder. And so I think that's what helped a lot. Saying we're starting this thing, we're doing this thing, we're existing here. What's up? You know what our work looks like. You know we're good at what we do. And so I think like with that said, with other women who are going in a male dominated industry, you're going to have to put yourself out there. Maybe this way is hard, right? For a lot of us, like being on, like talking, but our work has to be able to speak for itself. It has to be present. It has to be shown. You have to put that out there. I think sometimes we have to prove ourselves when we don't have to, but we do. And I think that even plays a part in why it's hard for us to be out here like we are now, because it's feeling like we deserve it and like we're building up our reputation to be able to speak to it. So there's no doubt. Um, but yeah, I would say that was something that we did a lot in the beginning that helped.
For our audience members, can you tell us what companies you worked with or maybe contributed to? Can you name drop a little bit?
Like now or before?
All of it.
And-
I
and
mean, I think it's impressive to also share what's on your resume. I just remember when we had our kickoff call, my jaw dropped. I was like, excuse me? You worked with the biggest brands in the world.
I was definitely a brand whore. And I openly will admit that on here because I very much wanted to work for companies in the beginning of my career that I was proud to work for and that I felt like had a reputation that could bring value to me, just like I was bringing value to them. And so straight from the beginning, I was honored and blessed to be able to work for companies like Disney, working on their books. I was able to luckily be able to creative direct and have my name in millions of books across the world right now, which is my favorite thing because I'm like my nephews and nieces, I'm like, yeah, auntie's out there. But other than that, it's been great. Sephora, Subaru, HBO, Williams Sonoma. I don't know, list can go on. Twitch, um,
These are so
Salesforce.
impressive.
Showtime,
Yeah.
Oprah. That was fun. Good names, good projects, fun things to work on, and amazing teams within them that I still love and value to this day, and who I could still rely on, which I feel really blessed to have too. And even within our company, I think we've been blessed to work with amazing companies too, like Google, Columbia, Vanderbilt, Match, and these projects that we've been working on have been so aligned with our mission as a company that it's been really great. Optum, which we love to pieces. Um, Hannah?
Yeah. Yeah. And we also work with a lot of like maybe not as recognizable brands, but they're some of our favorite clients. Like shout out to Naya and OMD, like
Love
these
Naya.
big nonprofit organizations doing amazing work. So
OMD, 1
yeah,
million degrees.
yeah, like great big brand names, but also companies that are doing really big mission in our different communities. And so it's always so amazing to be able to be part of their new launch or their rebranding. It's really exciting. We rebranded an organization that hasn't branded since the 90s. So that was fun, right? So it's just being like a really crucial part of people's pride and identity. So yeah, those are some of my favorites.
Yeah.
I love that when we look back at who we've worked with, not only can we feel like fulfilled in a way where people know and recognize these names, but also proud of the different types of projects, whether they be quote unquote big enough for people to know, because those are brands that are also making a massive, massive difference.
It's true.
Yeah. So if you guys could switch gears a little bit, I know we touched on scaling in a few different little pieces of our conversation today, but I would love to really dive in on how you guys scaled so quickly, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs or startups in general get stuck in the scaling. They don't know what to delegate, how to delegate, what to budget for, if it makes sense, or they might struggle a little bit with, perfectionism and releasing control.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a huge topic. That's interesting that you said like we scaled quickly because I think we're kind of like sometimes could be our biggest like
We're so hard on ourselves.
yeah, we could be hard on ourselves. Like, why are we scaling better and bigger? But it's true. I think from the get-go, our goal was when we envisioned ourselves in the future, we were like, we don't just want to be workers at our own company. And so that was a big motivator. Like, how can we really move to be owners versus being employees at our own of our own company? But we started really small. And I think there's sometimes like I'll talk to entrepreneurs and there's this kind of like thing where you feel like you have to be able to pay like a big salary to hire someone, but it's just not true. In our gig economy, there's a lot of folks who are freelancers full time and just want to be. And so whether it be practicing by delegating a blog post to someone external or we got an paid intern as our first person to hire, which was nice because it was like a trial run. It's like, let's do 3 months. Let's see what it feels like to hire someone else outside of us. And that got us like into the practice of learning how to delegate. And for sure, and there's people in all different situations, and there's so many people who are so excited to work. Like I remember so many people were, and still now, like people are excited to just, I hear all the time, like, oh, it's just nice to see like other women bosses that I could work for. And so I forget that that's also an opportunity and that we're also providing a different experience because we're not perfect. Like we're learning how to be managers and good bosses, or we're trying to we're figuring out so many things at one time. And so it's just we're going to show up how we are. But I think the other thing with perfectionism, we talked about this yesterday about letting go and being okay with someone else's 80%.
Yes.
Like that we would consider someone's an 80% for us. because we're the ones who founded it. We're going to be 150% every time. And so being okay, like you have to have other people make mistakes, and because that's the only way they're going to grow. And it's a challenge, but once you start, I think once you start to see that our team could handle things, and we empowered them to just handle it, and it was harder for us to watch than to do anything. But when it starts to work, it's like, okay, I never want to take that role back.
You
Yeah.
guys said something super profound to me in Miami, and I still think about it to this day. So I'm going to ask you to talk about it. I remember when we were sitting down at dinner, we were discussing just hiring in general,
Yeah.
and I was picking your brain, asking you guys some questions because I was just so impressed. And I remember you saying something that we learned was to hire somebody for a specific skill. Can you please speak on that? I love this.
The thing is the mindset of hiring to fire yourself. And when we built the business, we knew what the roles were. And we knew when we started, it was us two, right? And so we knew what our roles were. And so then you start taking those pieces apart. Like, how do I make my role feel less and less so I could focus on more? And I think that's what we kind of go in with is, okay, I'm on the creative side. There's tacticals with design, development, project management, those kind of things. What can we replace so it feels lighter so I could focus more on the bigger picture, which is the company? And so that means hiring a team out for those. So now we have a project manager. That's something we don't have to worry about anymore. We have a product manager. So Hannah doesn't have to worry about that anymore. We have designers. So now those design things are things that we don't have to worry about anymore. And so slowly, as we're growing to fire ourselves so that the business could start running on its own. And as you grow, when you start looking at the bigger picture of your business, you'll start seeing those roles that you didn't even think of exist. So it's at first we're like, oh, at some point it's going to feel like there's no roles to fill. No, there's always going to be more roles because you're growing. But you grow in a way and it feels really nice because now we're looking at our team do these things. And the best part about it is and this is something that I think every entrepreneur, every manager has to work on with themselves and within their own ego, is we don't know everything. And when you're hiring someone for your business, you want them to be better. You can't always be the star of your own show. Now you have a bigger show. Like there's a responsibility with me to Hannah to be like, when I'm hiring someone, I'm not trying to bring in someone who I think I can just look over and I'm better than, it's like, no, I want to be better. I want to make sure that if I'm building on my side and Hannah's building on her side, we're building out the best that we possibly can because the bigger picture is Oak and not ourselves and our own ego. And I think that is another thing that plays a huge part in like why our team is so amazing because they do things that my creative team, sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, can you do that? They'll put things together and I'll be like, I would have never thought of this ever. And it makes me so proud because I'm like, wow, this is what we are. Like we have so much range because of that. So yeah.
100%. Yeah, I think like my proudest moments are when I watch our team lead a meeting and I'm like, oh my God, they're so smart. And like, they're so much better than me at this part. Like, it's the worst if you're the smartest one in the room.
It
You
is.
have to care. You have to look over everything.
Yeah.
And so like hiring folks who are like really great at what they do and can also do it differently than you, but you get to learn from them. But to like your point, Lydia, about hiring for skill or attitude, like I think we've learned a lot through hiring and firing and people coming in and out and like learning that's a whole skill set, like people management. But I think one thing we've seen is we've hired folks for skill set, like on paper, and a lot more times than not, we've been disappointed actually. And so really hiring for great attitude, like great like character
Balance.
it is a balance. Like you still have to have the skill, but when it comes to like two individuals who one might be more skilled, but the other person seems like they have more of an ambitious drive to learn, like, and they have a little bit maybe less skill, like I think we've seen more success with the person with great attitude.
It's definitely a balance.
So interesting. And we're still like new to all of this. We have 2 interns helping us right now, and it definitely has been a dance of taking everything out of our brain of what we're used to doing on a daily, weekly basis, giving that to someone else, giving good directions, making sure that they have the space to be creative and problem solve and figure things out for themselves. It has been so much learning. And I appreciate that we're not the only entrepreneurs and business owners and partnership who are like, this is challenging, but we're learning a lot.
All of them. All of us.
All of us.
We are all feeling this.
We would love to hear how people can get in touch with you. How can they follow all things Oak Theory? How can they support you right now?
Hannah,
V.
what? This is literally, see, this is what I mean. This is her thing. Like,
I know, but for a moment I was like, let's switch it up, V.
okay, you can reach us. I'm straightforward. You can reach us online, oaktheory.co. We have social, so LinkedIn, Instagram, oaktheory.co on Instagram, LinkedIn, Oak Theory. And then you can always just say hello at oaktheory.co. And follow us, talk to us, post us, support us. That's all we can ask for.
I love this. And normally Lydia closes this out. So I'm like, why is she not unmuting herself? She always ends the show. Lydia.
See what I mean? They
Switch
put
it
you on
up.
the spot, right? It's like, okay, girl. See what we're
I
doing.
feel like I've recently been closing out the show. That's so funny. And I
You
was like,
have been.
oh, okay, Bridget. Okay.
I'll
I
step
gotta
back. I'll
switch it
step back.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, don't take me for granted. I might not want to do the closeout. You're gonna have to.
Exactly. Exactly.
You see the boxing ring that we're in this week?
Thank you guys so much for being here. I know that, you came in sick and I just so appreciate it. Conversations like this are what make Visibility Era such a fun show for us, for our listeners. So thank you very much for joining us today on another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
It was a
having
pleasure.
us.